As the gentle embrace of spring enveloped the land, Goblin Slayer found himself amidst the ruins of his former village, a haunting testament to the ravages of a goblin raid from years past. Serenely, he surveyed the desolation surrounding him. In the bustling confines of Frontier Town, Priestess and High Elf Archer observed a throng of fresh-faced adventurers eagerly enlisting for duty. With a twinkle of humor, Priestess, now seasoned in her second year, jestingly remarked upon her seniority and hinted at her impending promotion evaluation. Their attention was soon drawn to a missive from Noble Fencer, now donning the moniker of Female Merchant, detailing her ambitious plan to establish an adventurers' training camp for the incoming wave of novices. Joining them in discussion were Dwarf Shaman and Lizard Priest, their voices resonating with warmth as they deliberated over the potential benefits of the camp, extending hearty welcomes to their fellow adventurers and garnering the admiration of the fledgling recruits. In his characteristic no-nonsense manner, Goblin Slayer made his entrance, striking a chord of trepidation among the rookies while eliciting warm greetings from his seasoned comrades. With his customary resolve, he swiftly claimed all of Guild Girl's goblin-slaying tasks, and took it upon himself to monitor the assignments chosen by the new recruits, earning her nod of approval. As he stocked up on a plethora of potions and antidotes, the rookies couldn't help but cast wary glances at the imposing figure before them, their gazes a blend of reverence and apprehension. While carefully marking the potions, Goblin Slayer and Lizard Priest advised Rookie Refighter that her young group should commence their journey into the world of monster hunting by tackling giant rats, a task considered relatively safe, before venturing into the more perilous realm of goblin slaying. However, as they were about to depart, a red-haired rookie assertively collided with Priestess, causing a momentary disruption.
Road, next time you get a fireball!
Despite his abrupt dismissal, something in the intensity of his gaze struck Priestess, triggering a faint sense of recognition, leaving her pondering where she might have encountered him before. Following a grueling day of goblin slaying, Goblin Slayer made his way to the guild to deliver his report. His keen senses immediately detected an unfamiliar figure crouched on a nearby seat, prompting him to tense up in preparation for a potential goblin encounter. To his astonishment, it was the disagreeable rookie from earlier, his presence igniting a sense of unease within the seasoned warrior. Wizard Boy, as the newcomer was commonly referred to, eagerly expressed his desire for Goblin Slayer to take him under his wing and impart the art of goblin slaying. However, Goblin Slayer, ever pragmatic, declined the request, citing the young magician's lack of experience and evident distrust in his ability to be a diligent apprentice. Instead, he suggested that Wizard Boy start with smaller challenges, such as combating giant rats, to gradually hone his skills. Acknowledging Goblin Slayer's report, Guild Girl proposed that he extend a helping hand to Wizard Boy for the night, recognizing the boy's inability to afford accommodation. Though initially hesitant, Goblin Slayer begrudgingly agreed to escort the aspiring wizard to the farm for the night, his mind already formulating plans to ensure the safety of both himself and his inexperienced companion. When Goblin Slayer arrived at the farm, the golden hues of twilight painted the landscape, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass. Cowgirl greeted him with a mischievous twinkle in her eye, jesting that she was Goblin Slayer's wife, which elicited a bemused expression from Wizard Boy. Despite initial reservations, Cowgirl's uncle eventually relented to allow Goblin Slayer to stay the night, swayed by the assurance that Wizard Boy would be under close supervision in the shed. Goblin Slayer, ever pragmatic, reassured the farmer about his commitment to prioritizing rest, addressing the farmer's concerns about his well-being. The following morning, as the sun cast its warm rays over the countryside, Goblin Slayer guided Wizard Boy back to the guild, the path ahead dappled with the shifting shadows of trees. He counseled the budding magician to begin with humble tasks, underlining the significance of starting small, such as tackling the pesky rat population. Meanwhile, amidst the clinking of utensils and the aroma of breakfast cooking, Goblin Slayer found himself struggling after indulging in Cowgirl's hearty meal. Upon rejoining the group, he noticed the somber atmosphere as Priestess revealed her setback in the promotion exam. The seasoned adventurers exchanged empathetic glances, recognizing the challenges Priestess faced as a novice among veterans. In response, they offered suggestions for her improvement, advocating for collaboration with fellow rookies like Rookie Warrior, an apprentice cleric, or even mentoring the new recruits to hone her leadership skills. Yet, amid the supportive discourse, Wizard Boy overheard Priestess' admission of failure and brazenly mocked her, his voice carrying a sharp edge of superiority. Accusations flew as he belittled her efforts, insinuating cowardice and incompetence. Priestess, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, attempted to defend herself when Lizard Priest unexpectedly stepped in, his calm demeanor diffusing the tension like a soothing balm. In a resounding proclamation that echoed through the halls of the guild, Lizard Priest's voice boomed with righteous indignation as he announced that Wizard Boy's cutting insults directed at Priestess not only wounded her but also struck at the very heart of the priesthood itself. His words found immediate resonance among the gathered priests and their allies, who regarded Wizard Boy with a mixture of scorn and pity, seeing him as nothing more than an arrogant upstart with a penchant for trouble. The tension in the air thickened as Wizard Boy, feeling the weight of their collective disdain bearing down upon him, defiantly doubled down on his stance. With a flourish of bravado, he proclaimed his unwavering determination to face the goblins head-on, brushing aside the warnings and counsel of both Goblin Slayer and his peers with a contemptuous sneer. Into this charged atmosphere stepped female knight, her arrival punctuated by the clatter of armor and the swish of her cape. With a theatrical flourish, she sought to diffuse the mounting hostility, though her efforts were met with varying degrees of skepticism from those present. Quick to diffuse the tension, Heavy Warrior stepped forward with heartfelt apologies, seeking to mend the fraying bonds of camaraderie among them. However, female knight's attempt to restore order took an unexpected turn as she challenged Wizard Boy to prove his mettle by embarking on a perilous mission to slay goblins. Yet, to the surprise of all, she entrusted the leadership of this venture not to Wizard Boy, but to Priestess, throwing a curveball into the already tumultuous proceeding. When Goblin Slayer arrived at the building site of the Female Merchants Training Center, he told Priestess to take leadership, as per their agreed strategy for their newest goblin-slaying quest involving the cocky novice Wizard Boy. During their encounter with the worksite's foreman, who happened to be Dwarf Shaman's relative or friend, he warned them of a mausoleum that had just become overrun by goblins. He also expressed alarm over the loss of a promising adventurer party he had previously sent to the region, blaming it on goblins taking tools, and suspected the participation of an unseen power leading the goblins and assisting them in destroying the party. Wizard Boy, anxious to rescue prospective survivors from the ill-fated party, complained loudly about the rigorous information collecting and preparation procedure. However, High Elf Archer and Dwarf Shaman chastised him, advising him to trust the leaders and combatants in their strategic planning while directing the scouts and support personnel to prepare supplies. Despite these counseling sessions, Wizard Boy continued to be a nuisance, dismissing Priestess authority. At the mausoleum, the group works hard to prepare, with Lizard Priest encouraging Priestess on her first day as leader and everyone else getting ready for the job at hand. As Priestess delivers directions for squad formation, Wizard Boy maintains his haughty demeanor and loudly complains, taking advantage of an opportunity for some lighthearted entertainment at his expense. Both Priestess and High Elf Archer criticize his incapacity to listen, as seen by his failure to acquire a sachet to cover his fragrance. As a result, the pompous visitor is exposed to Goblin Slayer's goblin guts, much to his dismay. Inside the tomb, the mission begins, with the vanguard of Goblin Slayer and Lizard Priest quickly allowing High Elf Archer to barricade the doors with wedges. This prudent maneuver avoids the party from becoming overwhelmed. The Priestess encourages the squad to keep their spells for later use. The party begins emptying the rooms in a cautious and systematic manner. However, Wizard Boy's impatience gets the best of him, prompting him to break formation and become a victim of an evident goblin trap. The trap's activation noisily betrays the party's location. When Wizard Boy hears a lady scream, he runs forward and sees a goblin torturing acolyte, the only survivor of her ill-fated party. Wizard Boy, frightened, uses his fireball spell at the lone goblin, exhausting his spell's whole duration. To their dismay, the rest of the goblin horde, including the troll leader, emerges. Wizard Boy recognizes that he has fallen for yet another trap and loudly advises the party to keep away. Despite his plight, the remainder of the group comes just in time to save him an acolyte from the approaching peril. The journey unfolds within the tomb. The vanguard, consisting of the Goblin Slayer and the Lizard Priest, moves quickly to allow High Elf Archer to secure the doors with wedges, preventing the group from becoming swamped. The Priestess encourages the party to keep their spells for later use. Taking a careful and thorough approach, the group begins the tedious work of emptying the rooms. However, the pace is so methodical that Wizard Boy, pushed by impatience, breaks formation and falls into a clear goblin trap, unknowingly betraying the party's position with a loud ruckus. In response to a woman's cry, Wizard Boy rushes forward and sees a goblin torturing acolyte, the only survivor of her doomed group. Wizard Boy, horrified by the situation, unleashes his fireball spell on the lone goblin, emptying his spell's single use. Unfortunately, this act discloses the presence of the remainder of the goblin horde, which is headed by the troll leader. Realizing he has fallen into yet another evident trap, Wizard Boy strongly advises the rest of the party to keep away. Fortunately, they come just in time to save him an acolyte from the dangerous scenario. Faced with overwhelming odds, Priestess hands over command of the party to Goblin Slayer, who quickly devises a strategy for the group's withdrawal. As they retreat back, the troll goes insane, accidentally injuring several of his own goblin warriors with the Goblin Slayer's Molotov cocktail. Priestess and the others race ahead, finding a chamber to gather and regain their breath before assessing Acolyte's health. Fortunately, although being severely injured and traumatized, Acolyte's life is not in immediate danger. Given the circumstances, Dwarf Shaman warns against using heal on Acolyte to maintain Priestess spellcasting skills. Wizard Boy realizes his actions have jeopardized Priestess leadership exam, and he seeks to apologize. However, before he can properly convey his guilt, Goblin Slayer and High Elf Archer return, followed by the Flaming Troll, bringing the discourse to an abrupt end. Recognizing the troll's regenerative skills, Goblin Slayer summons Priestess to cast Holy Light, while Dwarf Shaman summons Rain using his Kelpie Spirit. The troll is rendered defenseless as a result of the unexpected light and the precipitation. Goblin Slayer seizes the opportunity and douses the troll with a saltpeter bomb. The resulting chemical reaction, induced by the combination of heat and quick cooling from the water, causes the saltpeter to physically fracture the troll's skin. Wizard Boy is stunned after witnessing this astonishing method. His awe builds as the Goblin Slayer and Lizard Priest expertly slay the already defenseless troll. Despite the great performance, Wizard Boy is startled to see that Goblin Slayer stays stubbornly focused on the relentless slaughter of the goblins, showing his unshakable dedication to the task. Later that night, at the guild, the party celebrates their victory against the troll, exchanging words of wisdom with Wizard Boy about his future adventures. High Elf Archer and the others also encourage Priestess in her temporary leadership role. The destiny of Acolyte is revealed during the celebration, with the Priestess revealing that he has returned to the Temple of the Earth Mother for healing. Acolyte plans to consider her future when she has completely healed. However, the atmosphere darkens when Wizard Boy declares that Acolyte, having fallen to goblins, would never be able to overcome the shame associated with defeating these monsters in the eyes of the world. In an unexpected revelation, Wizard Boy explains the cause of his own bad attitude. He reveals that he is the late wizard's younger brother, who was a member of Priestess's original party and died tragically. Wizard Boy recounts that the wizard's death, inflicted by a poisoned goblin blade, led his sibling to be mocked by people who had previously revered her. After witnessing Wizard Boy's passionate outburst, Goblin Slayer orders that a room be prepared for the now unconscious Wizard Boy before discreetly exiting the scene. Passing Spearman and Witch, who notice a change in his demeanor, Goblin Slayer enters an alley. There, he bitterly criticizes himself for his perceived inability to save Wizard Boy's elder sister a year earlier. The weight of the responsibility grows as he considers being the one who had to do the mercy killing, depriving Wizard Boy of his sister. The self-reproach lingers in the dark lane, capturing Goblin Slayer's emotional struggles and regrets. On the outskirts of the training ground, where the female knight is instructing Refighter, incorporating intense training techniques such as practicing murder strokes to emphasize the importance of not dropping her shield, Wizard Boy finds himself under the watchful eye of Spearman, who, along with Rookie Warrior, has taken on the role of his trainer as per Guild Girl's request to improve their stamina. Motivated by discussions about his repeated rejections by Guild Girl, Wizard Boy resolves to enhance his skills by taking on the role of the hunter while Spearman and Rookie Warrior play the hunted. Meanwhile, Goblin Slayer is imparting his knowledge to the female druid and apprentice cleric on crafting and utilizing slings, emphasizing the simplicity of the tools required, just a string and a rock, to effectively breach a helmet. Though his instructions may lack finesse, Guild Girl is pleased to see him assisting them. Priestess and Farm Girl contribute to the gathering by bringing food,
Who's hungry?
while Heavy Warrior opts to lead some of the other rookies into caves for further training. In the midst of the activities, Spearman seeks Goblin Slayer's availability for the evening. With Farm Girl's approval, plans are made for Spearman and Heavy Warrior to enjoy a night of drinking together. After their strenuous battle, Wizard Boy and Refighter found themselves sprawled out on the grass, utterly drained. Nearby, Rookie Warrior lay unconscious in the lap of Apprentice Cleric. As he stirred awake, his gaze inadvertently lingered on Ree's chest before quickly diverting, inquiring if she had recorded all the necessary details. Uncertain, she lamented her lack of practice with the sling. While he disparaged the prowess of Goblin Slayer, Apprentice Cleric swiftly reminded him of Goblin Slayer's pivotal role in their party's salvation, silencing his criticism. Soon, Priestess approached, offering them refreshing lemon water and nourishment. Despite their apprehension about potential nausea, Wizard Boy decided to eat, recognizing the importance of fortifying his muscles, prompting the others to follow suit. Attempting to establish rapport with Wizard Boy, Priestess encountered resistance, prompting her to redirect her attention to Refighter. She learned that Ree's party had disbanded due to their leader's departure to attend to his ailing brother, leaving Ree to pursue her dreams of solo adventuring, driven by the desire to prove that prowess transcends stature. While Ree aspired for greatness as a solo adventurer, Wizard Boy remained focused on mastering the art of goblin slaying. Reflecting on his sister's words, Priestess shared an anecdote about a wizard she once knew who harbored dreams of vanquishing a dragon. Initially skeptical, Wizard Boy found himself contemplating the idea of daring to dream on a grand scale, encouraged by Priestess's words. That night, GS eagerly joined his comrades for a rare excursion into the city's nightlife. Eager to maintain discretion, they selected a dimly lit tavern known for its centaur waitress, a unique touch that added an air of novelty to their evening. As the drinks flowed and laughter filled the air, Heavy Warrior's gaze lingered appreciatively on the centaur waitress's distinctive physique, sparking a jovial debate among the group about the merits of various physical features. Amidst the revelry, Spearman tactfully broached the topic of GS's romantic involvements, prompting a candid discussion about his relationships with Guild Girl, Farm Girl, High Elf Archer, and Priestess. Despite the playful banter, GS remained steadfast in his commitment to his mission of goblin eradication, insisting that his priorities would not shift until the threat was eliminated. As the night progressed and inhibitions waned, the conversation turned introspective, with GS revealing his childhood aspirations of achieving legendary status as an adventurer. Despite his undeniable prowess, he remained humble, hesitant to embrace the mantle of legend. His companions, too, shared their own dreams and disappointments, united in their desire for everyone to realize their fullest potential. The following day dawned with Wizard Boy engrossed in the intricacies of magical instruction under the tutelage of Dwarf Shaman. Amidst the arcane teachings, it became apparent that his grasp of spellcasting was more nuanced than initially assumed. Dwarf Shaman elucidated the complexities of wielding words of power, revealing that instead of a solitary fireball spell, Wizard Boy possessed a repertoire of 4 distinct incantations. Each spell held its own unique purpose, one for conjuring flames, another for expanding objects, and yet another for hurling projectiles. It was emphasized that mastery of these spells required not only awareness but also a deeper understanding of their applications, hinting at the untapped potential awaiting Wizard Boy's discovery. Meanwhile, in another corner of the realm, Fighter indulged in a feast of epic proportions, her voracious appetite rivaling that of the famed lizard priest. Between mouthfuls, she confided in her companions about her usual dining habits, which typically comprised 5 to 6 meals a day. However, the demands of adventuring necessitated a departure from her customary routine, compelling her to consume larger portions in fewer sittings. Recognizing her solitary endeavors, Priestess extended a heartfelt invitation for joint adventuring, offering assistance in her quest for rank advancement. Despite grappling with self-doubt, Fighter found solace in Lizard Priest's unwavering belief in her inherent luck, ultimately agreeing to accompany them on their upcoming adventure. Meanwhile, as the sun cast its golden rays over the land, Goblin Slayer and Farm Girl engaged in contemplation amidst the backdrop of a burgeoning construction project. The site, once the hallowed ground of their ancestral village, now bore witness to the inexorable march of progress. Yet, amidst the clamor of construction, Goblin Slayer remained steadfast in his vigilance, unable to reconcile with the encroaching threat of goblin kind. His unwavering resolve left Farm Girl to grapple with her own thoughts, a silent witness to the turmoil brewing within his steadfast heart. And as shadows lengthened across the land, the tranquility of the moment was shattered by the grim reality of goblin activity. A lone construction worker, unwittingly stumbling upon a concealed goblin excavation near the training camp, met a tragic end at the hands of these malevolent creatures, serving as a stark reminder of the ever-present danger lurking in the shadows. Goblin Slayer instructed the group to arrange themselves in a semicircular formation around the spellcasters and arm themselves. He advised them to maintain this formation for 15 minutes, indicating that he would return within that time frame or meet his demise. Following his instructions, he proceeded to engage the goblins in combat, while the Wizard Boy observed, dispatching a goblin by thrusting his sword directly into its eye. He stumbled upon the corpses of laborers and adventurers, a sight that evoked memories of his own village. Priestess encountered him amidst the chaos, witnessing the demise of a comrade and taking a moment to offer a prayer for the fallen. She then mentioned that she had replenished her spell slots after a brief respite. Their group rendezvoused with Witch, Spearman, and their companions, including Heavy Warrior. Female Knight was unavailable due to her monthly condition, and the rookies were attending to her. With the goblins on the move, they devised a plan to ensure the safety of the children Goblin Slayer was responsible for. High Elf Archer was assigned to watch over them while they strategized tracking the hideout through the tunnels, recognizing that the tunnels were likely interconnected. They resolved to enter the nearest one and eradicate the goblins. However, they needed to ensure the safety of the other children within the unfinished building they were currently occupying. In a decisive move, Heavy Warrior took charge of safeguarding the children under his care, mindful of the need for ample space to wield his formidable weapon. However, amidst the preparations, Priestess voiced a poignant inquiry, casting doubt upon the completeness of their group. Her worry stemmed from a shrewd understanding of goblin tactics. While the creatures were known to avoid direct confrontation with seasoned adventurers, they harbored no qualms about preying upon vulnerable novices in their flight. Sensing the urgency of the situation, Priestess proposed a daring plan to rescue the fledgling adventurers, whom Goblin Slayer had been mentoring, from the impending goblin threat. Despite the risks involved, the group reached a consensus, acknowledging the plan as a fitting trial for Priestess's forthcoming rank assessment. As the children commenced their journey homeward, the ominous shadow of danger loomed overhead. Suddenly, the air crackled with tension as a horde of goblins descended upon them with ruthless efficiency. In the chaotic frenzy, one valiant fighter managed to push back the assailants momentarily, seizing the opportunity to extricate a fallen comrade from the clutches of death. However, their brief reprieve was short-lived, for more goblins emerged from the darkness, tightening the noose around their chances of survival. In the underground, a clash erupted as the veterans initiated their own skirmish. High Elf Archer, positioned strategically, detected their approach from both flanks during an ambush. Utilizing their skills, Dwarf Shaman managed to lull half of the opponents into slumber, while Witch swiftly deployed Deflect Missile to ward off the incoming arrows. Following this, Witch employed counter magic to neutralize the enemy caster's spells, granting High Elf Archer the opportunity to take aim at the Shaman. Seizing the moment, GS devised a plan to handle the remaining adversaries, while Heavy Warrior, stationed above, swiftly dispatched a Hobgoblin. Meanwhile, the inexperienced rookies found themselves in a frantic retreat, with one unfortunate soul removing their helmet only to meet a swift demise by a sizable rock hurled by the pursuing goblins, who swarmed from the dense foliage. Though aware of the mocking taunts from the goblins, Priestess executed a blinding maneuver, allowing Rookie Warrior and Refighter to swiftly eliminate two assailants. Recognizing the need for open terrain to capitalize on Priestess's defensive ability, they struggled against the mounting numerical superiority of their foes.
What the hell are they laughing about?
Wizard Boy, drawing from his accumulated knowledge, found himself at a crossroads, aware that his usual tactic of casting Fireball wouldn't suffice against the dispersed enemies. He swiftly recalled Dwarf Shaman's teachings, urging his companions to shield their ears and seek refuge behind him. He unleashed a piercing scream that reverberated through the forest, striking fear into the hearts of the cowardly goblins and providing an opening for their escape. Setting aside his desire for vengeance, Wizard Boy deferred the task of slaying goblins to Goblin Slayer, focusing instead on guiding the group to safety. Meanwhile, Goblin Slayer devised a strategic plan with Dwarf Shaman creating openings in the ceiling, and Lizard Priest utilizing a formidable roar to drive the goblins deeper into the tunnels. Anticipating their return, Goblin Slayer resolved to flood the tunnels by draining the lake, instructing Witch to freeze the water with an ice spell, which would ultimately collapse the tunnel. With the nest crushed, victory seemed within reach. In a subsequent scene, Priestess received a well-deserved promotion to Steel rank, although she couldn't shake the feeling of regret over allowing some goblins to escape. High Elf Archer offered words of reassurance, reminding her of the invaluable role she played in safeguarding the younger members of their group. Wizard Boy made the decision to embark on a journey to hone his skills instead of returning to the Sorcerer's Academy, regardless of what his classmates might say. He resolved to earn his achievements independently and aspired to become a Dragon Slayer. Refighter, despite his attempts to dissuade her, insisted on accompanying him. In a surprising turn of events, Goblin Slayer found himself laughing at something in the scene. A behavior quite unusual for him. Before parting ways, Goblin Slayer instructed them to mention his name should they encounter a renamed burglar, indicating that he would offer them assistance. As they departed, Farm Girl joined them, prompting a conversation about the drained lake. Although he expressed remorse, Farm Girl interpreted his apparent happiness as a sign of positive outcomes, reassuring her about the situation. At the guild, bustling with activity, a postal worker carefully sorts through the mail, finally delivering a stack of letters to the adventurer's table. Among them is a delicate envelope addressed to none other than High Elf Archer. With nimble fingers, she opens it, her eyes lighting up with excitement as she reads its contents aloud. Seems like it's time for a wedding. Her announcement startles the rest of the party, who exchange surprised glances. High Elf Archer, her cheeks flushed with anticipation, eagerly outlines the intricate rituals and ceremonies that will soon take place, extending a heartfelt invitation to her companion. Yet, amidst the joyous chatter, Priestess can't help but wonder if this signifies an end to High Elf Archer's adventuring days. Her concern lingers in the air, briefly casting a shadow over the otherwise jubilant atmosphere. After a moment of uncertainty, the truth dawns upon the group. It's not High Elf Archer who's getting married, but her esteemed older sister, Forest Princess. Understanding dawns on their faces, accompanied by relieved smiles. However, Goblin Slayer, ever the solitary figure, attempts to decline the invitation, citing his duty to continue slaying goblins. Yet, Priestess, with gentle persuasion, convinces him of the importance of maintaining the town's safety even in his absence. News of the elven wedding spreads like wildfire through the guild, sparking guild girl's imagination as she envisions herself attending the lavish affair. Her excitement is palpable as she dreams of the elegant festivities and grandeur of elven customs. When High Elf Archer graciously extends an invitation for her to join as a +1, guild girl's eyes sparkle with delight. Meanwhile, Inspector, with a keen eye for his colleagues' well-being, notices guild girl's longing for a break, seizing the opportunity. He convinces her that attending the wedding would serve as a much-needed respite from their daily duties. However, to ensure the town's safety during their absence, Inspector tasks Goblin Slayer with a series of urgent goblin slaying quests to be completed before the festivities commence. Amidst the flurry of preparations and excitement, High Elf Archer takes it upon herself to enlighten Goblin Slayer about the enigmatic creature known as an elephant, her animated gestures bringing the majestic beast to life in his mind's eye. At a secluded chapel nestled within the woods, Goblin Slayer and his companions successfully vanquish all the goblins, rescuing the battered nuns who still cling to life. While the keen-eyed High Elf Archer discreetly confirms the complete eradication of the goblins, the scholarly dwarf shaman meticulously sifts through the remnants of the ravaged library, seeking salvageable relics from both sacred and forgotten tomes. In the central chamber, Lizard Priest offers solace to the traumatized women with words of healing and encouragement. Priestess introduces her newfound ability, the Purify Miracle, which brings relief and cleansing to both the rescued nuns and the weary party. Following this, Dwarf Shaman presents ancient tablets unearthed from the ruins, suggesting they be entrusted to esteemed scholars for thorough examination. Upon their return to the farmstead, Cowgirl diligently herds the cows into the safety of their barn as Goblin Slayer makes his way back. Upon meeting him and ensuring his well-being, Cowgirl reminisces about their childhood promise of marriage, which Goblin Slayer denies ever making. Despite this, he extends an invitation for her to accompany him as his guest to the upcoming elven wedding, much to her delight. The next day, the group arrives in Watertown, while the women disperse to purchase wedding gifts and indulge in some personal shopping. Dwarf Shaman and Lizard Priest set off to secure accommodations at the local inn. Meanwhile, Goblin Slayer seeks out Sword Maiden to decipher the ancient tablets he recovered, to which she graciously agrees. She also updates him on Noble Fencer's recovery progress and expresses gratitude for his assistance during the winter mission. Goblin Slayer expresses concern for Sword Maiden's well-being and advises her to remain vigilant against potential goblin threats. She, in turn, laments his impending departure, wishing he would stay longer. Upon learning of his journey to the Elven lands, she warns him about recent goblin attacks on ships bound for the elves, urging him to exercise caution. The group decides to rent a sturdy raft for their journey to the elven forests, eager to behold the stunning landscapes along the way. As they glide along the tranquil waters, their eyes feast upon the breathtaking scenery that surrounds them. Yet, their mood takes a somber turn as they notice the imposing rocky cliffs enclosing the narrowing canal, and the eerie silence that blankets the forest. A sense of unease grips the adventurers as they detect signs of potential danger lurking nearby. With quick instincts, they assume defensive stances, readying themselves for any imminent threat. Cowgirl and Guild Girl seek refuge behind large blankets,
Take this. Okay.
seeking protection from the looming danger just as massive boulders start to cascade down from the towering cliffs. The party found themselves under attack by a horde of goblins hurling boulders from the cliffs above, prompting Priestess to swiftly cast her protection spell to shield the raft. High Elf Archer skillfully intercepted the incoming arrows with her own, ensuring the group's safety. Seeing the need for a coordinated defense, Goblin Slayer delegated the rudder to Lizard Priest and instructed Archer to modify her arrowheads for better impact. Meanwhile, Dwarf Shaman summoned a water elemental to hasten their escape. Amidst the chaos, Lizard Priest inquired about finishing off their assailants, but Goblin Slayer advised prioritizing safety for Guild Girl and Farm Girl, both present in the party. Their progress was hindered by a debris dam, prompting Dwarf Shaman to enlist the Undyne's aid in lifting the raft, followed by Priestess purifying the obstacle with her magic. With the path clear, Lizard Priest used his powerful Scream spell to drive away the remaining goblins, allowing the group to escape. Upon reaching land, the female members of the party changed into swimsuits, a practical choice given the circumstances. Lizard Priest, while expressing a preference for his scaly companions, complimented the girls' appearance. Despite their obvious desire for approval, Goblin Slayer remained indifferent, staying true to his character. As the sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a golden hue upon the tranquil river, the girls earnestly endeavored to reel in their catch. HEA's deft hands danced across the fishing line, deftly maneuvering the bait to entice the elusive river dwellers. Amidst their piscatorial pursuits, animated discussions unfolded, weaving tales of adventure and aspiration. Farm girl, her eyes sparkling with dreams of yore, confessed her childhood fantasies of donning royal garb or walking down the aisle in fairytale splendor, eliciting a soft chuckle from priestess who found such whimsical desires endearing. Meanwhile, GS, reclining on the grassy bank, observed their camaraderie with a quiet smile, interjecting occasional words of encouragement as he contemplated the weight of his duty to safeguard his companion. As twilight descended upon the riverside camp, the girls retired briefly to their tents, emerging once more, adorned in their evening attire, to partake in a simple yet hearty meal. HEA regaled them with tales of her sister's radiant beauty juxtaposed against her brother-in-law's affable clumsiness, eliciting laughter and shared anecdotes from their own experiences. The following morning brought with it a sense of anticipation tinged with apprehension as GS found himself unexpectedly accosted by a curious elf, his azure eyes alight with intrigue. With a mixture of admiration and incredulity, the elf recounted the skirmish with the goblins, his voice laced with curiosity as he inquired about HEA's whereabouts. Upon his revelation as HEA's elder brother, the elf shared snippets of embarrassing anecdotes divulged by HEA, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves in the morning breeze. Escorting them back to camp, GS couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt for disrupting HEA's journey so soon after its commencement, his senses attuned to the faint scent of humanity clinging to her. Amidst the tranquil backdrop of the forest, priestess and guild girl engaged in a spirited discussion, delving deeper into the implications of the goblin resurgence. Guild girl's voice carried a note of solemnity as she expounded upon the magnitude of the danger posed by the goblins, drawing parallels with ancient battles of mythic proportions witnessed by the elves. Meanwhile, the elf's mention of the one that stops the water sent shivers down their spines, evoking whispered tales of an enigmatic entity whose origins were shrouded in mystery. Its presence, looming on the outskirts of their village, served as a harbinger of impending doom, casting a shadow over the idyllic landscape and stirring a sense of unease among the villagers. Upon their arrival, they were warmly greeted by HEA at her home, where they were ushered to seats crafted from mushrooms amidst the towering trees. Opting to remain behind, Goblin Slayer and High Elf Archer settled in, while Lizard Priest and Dwarf Shaman set out to procure food. This arrangement left Guild Girl, Priestess, and Farm Girl to partake in a refreshing bath, with Priestess gently reminding GS of the importance of self-care and nourishment. Later, in a casual exchange, High Elf Archer and GS discussed his preparations, particularly the crafting of bolas to confront the Goblin Champion. Amusingly, HEA playfully transformed the bolas into clackers until her sister's arrival, which brought a blush of embarrassment to her cheeks. Graciously, the elder sister expressed gratitude to GS for his watchful eye over her sibling and even suggested he should not hesitate to seek companionship elsewhere if he so desired. GS then noticed an elf lingering nearby, recognizing her as the one he had rescued during their initial mission together, and shared with her the grim truth of his actions against the goblins. HEA's sister took her aside, broaching the subject of retirement from adventuring, considering the perilous nature of their profession, especially when collaborating with a dwarf. She expressed a subtle disappointment as GS didn't quite meet the heroic image she had envisioned from tales and hinted at the inevitable dangers ahead, prompting HEA to reflect on her commitment to her companions. Before her sister could voice her concern, the tranquility of the forest was shattered by a violent tremor. Reacting swiftly, HEA instinctively reached for her bow, only to realize it was missing, prompting GS to toss it to her and guide her sister to safety. Suddenly, a colossal creature emerged, initially mistaken by GS for an elephant, but HEA corrected him. As Mokul Mubin lumbered towards the elven village, its massive form casting a shadow over the trees, High Elf Archer's keen eyes spotted a goblin perched atop it, barking orders to the beast. Apprehensive about harming the creature known as the One Who Stops the Waters, she turned to Goblin Slayer, urging him to devise a plan that would neutralize the goblin threat while ensuring Mokul Mubin's safety. Quick-witted Dwarf Shaman suggested a tactic: take out the goblin swiftly to pave the way for Goblin Slayer to confront Mokul Mubin. Acting on the plan, Priestess directed Cowgirl and Guild Girl to retreat to the safety of their guest room, where they could equip Goblin Slayer with additional gear. Despite the protests of Shining Helm, who placed his faith in the elven guards to handle the situation, High Elf Archer waved off his concerns with a light chuckle. With resolve, she charged into the fray, her bow singing as she swiftly brought down the goblin rider. This opened the opportunity for Lizard Priest to unleash his roar spell, while Dwarf Shaman cast Stupor on Mokul Mubin, leaving the massive beast momentarily disoriented. In a coordinated effort, Goblin Slayer skillfully maneuvered to entangle the beast with a rope, skillfully tossed by Cowgirl and Guild Girl. Following the intense battle, Shining Helm affirmed his understanding of the situation. When the conversation shifted to other potentially endangered towns, Goblin Slayer began plotting his next moves, determined to root out the goblin threat wherever it may lurk. That night, amidst the urgency of an impromptu assembly, Forest Princess gracefully excused herself to engage in a private dialogue with her younger sister concerning the notion of returning home. High Elf Archer, resolute in her decision, politely rebuffed the proposition. Sensing the weight of High Elf Archer's unspoken emotions for Goblin Slayer, Forest Princess delicately juxtaposed the fleeting nature of human existence against the enduring lifespan of elves. She offered a poignant reminder of the preciousness of time. High Elf Archer, in response, articulated her inclination to cherish the moments with her companions, rationalizing that farewells were an inevitable part of the human experience. Nevertheless, she tendered a heartfelt promise to return to her homeland someday. Amidst the intermission from the deliberations, Shining Helm sought out Goblin Slayer, eager to discuss the escalating goblin threat and formulate a strategic response. However, Dwarf Shaman seized the opportunity to indulge the groom-to-be's palate with a lavish spread of delectable delicacies and fine wines. With the playful assistance of Lizard Priest, their banter added a light-hearted touch to the otherwise serious atmosphere. In the midst of deliberating the goblin conundrum, Goblin Slayer and Shining Helm found common ground in acknowledging the unusual audacity of the goblins' decision to establish a nest perilously close to a prominent elven settlement. However, Goblin Slayer astutely pointed out the inherent inertia within elven society, where issues often lingered unaddressed due to their elongated lifespan. He surmised that the goblins had likely been underestimated until they posed a tangible threat to the village. The conversation took an unexpected turn when Shining Helm confessed his struggle to comprehend his potential sister-in-law's perspective. His self-reproach deepened upon learning of Goblin Slayer's familial ties, prompting him to dismiss any notion that he might be perceived as nothing but a burden to her. Goblin Slayer asserts that his sister's tender care stemmed from deep affection, and as a survivor, he feels compelled to honor her memory by continuing to live. Both Dwarf Shaman and Lizard Priest nod in solemn agreement, understanding the significance of familial bonds in shaping one's resolve. Meanwhile, within the hallowed halls of the Temple of the Supreme God, Sword Maiden's deft fingers meticulously decipher the cryptic inscriptions etched upon the ancient tablets delivered by Goblin Slayer. With a mixture of relief and trepidation, she unravels the ominous warnings concealed within the arcane symbol. Grasping the gravity of the impending threat, Sword Maiden expresses profound gratitude for Goblin Slayer's unwavering assistance, which proved invaluable in deciphering the tablet's secret. However, beneath her gratitude lies a quiet worry, a concern that perhaps Goblin Slayer's motivations for delving into such perilous knowledge may differ from her own. Turning to one of her attentive aides, Sword Maiden instructs them to dispatch a message via a swift carrier pigeon, urging them not to squander precious resources on further futile attempts to sway Goblin Slayer's affection. To the attendant's surprise, Sword Maiden confides that the missive is intended for none other than the esteemed chief of the elves, hinting at a looming crisis of monumental proportions that necessitates urgent diplomatic intervention. As the hour of reckoning draws near, Goblin Slayer diligently prepares himself for the harrowing hunt ahead. His resolve steeled by the weight of his past traumas and his unyielding commitment to protecting those he holds dear. Sensing Cowgirl's palpable anxiety, he offers her a reassuring embrace, silently promising to return unscathed. In turn, she implores him to exercise caution, her eyes brimming with unspoken fears for his safety. Before departing, Cowgirl playfully teases Guild Girl for her hesitance to join the fray, confessing that her reluctance stemmed from a desire to maintain a flawless facade in front of Goblin Slayer. However, Guild Girl finds solace in the realization that true beauty transcends cosmetics, knowing deep down that Goblin Slayer's affection for her extends far beyond the superficial. Goblin Slayer, initially planning to depart with a boat provided by Shining Helm, found himself in need of a second boat upon learning about the approaching fog. Deciding to use a second boat, manned by Lizard Priest's Dragontooth warriors. As a diversion, Goblin Slayer and Lizard Priest effectively guided the party up the river towards the Goblin's nest situated in an abandoned stronghold. Upon arrival, they were taken aback by the sight of the perimeter lined with impaled bodies of elves and other adventurers, reminiscent of the notorious tactics of Vlad the Impaler, showcasing the goblins' audacious and vile nature. Inside the deserted stronghold, Goblin Slayer and the party delved into investigating and analyzing the situation, ultimately deducing that a formidable goblin shaman had seized control of Mokul Muben. They speculated that the sauropod might return to dispose of the travelers' bodies in the river for proper burial. However, instead of finding victims, they stumbled upon evidence revealing that the goblins had been using an ancient wine press to crush the corpses of their captives, contaminating the river with blood. organs, and waste in an attempt to poison or curse the elven village. Disturbed by their discovery, they took a brief respite. During this interlude, Goblin Slayer expressed his regret to High Elf Archer for redirecting the adventure into a goblin-slaying quest.
I'm sorry.
What do you mean? Sorry for what?
Nevertheless, she recognized the significance of this moment. High Elf Archer sought to console Priestess, witnessing the profound impact the goblin's depravity had on her. As Goblin Slayer and his comrades delved deeper into their investigation of the decrepit elven fortress overrun by goblins, Goblin Slayer infers that Mokul Muben's recent violent outbursts stem from the influence of a shaman commanding the creature. Recognizing the added challenge this presents to their mission, Lizard Priest devises a strategic battle formation, placing Goblin Slayer at the forefront, positioning himself and Dwarf Shaman on the flanks, and stationing High Elf Archer to guard Priestess from behind while offering support. Before engaging in combat, High Elf Archer expresses her heartfelt gratitude to her companions for their assistance in defending her village during this crisis, particularly given that they were originally invited to attend her elder sister's wedding. Her companions reassure her of their unwavering support and readiness for the impending confrontation. The assault unfolds with precision, as High Elf Archer manages to inflict a significant injury on the Goblin Shaman. However, the Goblin Shaman retaliates by unleashing a poisonous cloud, immobilizing the entire party except for Priestess. Witnessing her comrades incapacitated, reminiscent of the tragic fate of her former party, Priestess responds with determination. Fueled by anger, she employs her skills to purify the wound inflicted by High Elf Archer, transforming the Goblin Shaman's tainted blood into pure water. The unexpected turn of events sparks panic among the Goblin forces. In the aftermath of the harrowing battle, Priestess found herself overwhelmed by a surge of conflicting emotions. As she reflected on her actions, a sense of guilt washed over her. She realized with a heavy heart that the defensive miracle she had invoked had been wielded in an offensive manner, seemingly defiling the sacred gift bestowed upon her by the Earth Mother. However, amidst her turmoil, Priestess was swiftly comforted by the reassuring presence of Goblin Slayer. With his characteristic calmness, he reassured her, affirming that her actions had been necessary and just. His words served as a balm to her troubled soul, providing solace in the midst of doubt. Together with the steadfast support of Dwarf Shaman, the group rallied to aid their comrades, High Elf Archer and Lizard Priest, in their time of need. Amidst the chaos of battle's aftermath, they worked tirelessly to tend to the wounded and offer whatever comfort they could muster. Utilizing Dwarf Shaman's falling control with precision, the party executed a daring escape, leaping gracefully over the fortress ramparts and descending safely to the ground below. Meanwhile, amidst the chaos within the fortress, the recovered Goblin Shaman found himself facing an unexpected calamity as the waters began to rise, spelling doom for the remaining Goblin forces. Outside, Dwarf Shaman revealed the foresight of their preparations, disclosing that they had previously enacted his tunnel spell as a contingency plan to flood the fortress in case of emergency. Despite the decisive victory, Priestess found herself grappling with a crisis of faith, her doubts and fears threatening to overshadow the triumph they had achieved. Sensing her inner turmoil, Goblin Slayer directed her gaze towards the heavens, where a magnificent rainbow had emerged over the liberated fortress. The sight served as a symbol of hope and renewal, a gentle reminder that even in the darkest of times, there remained a beacon of light to guide them forward. Meanwhile, in a distant realm, Hero and her stalwart companions, Sword Saint and Sage, ventured forth on their own quest for justice. With unwavering determination, they faced the demonic forces head-on, their courage unyielding in the face of adversity. As Hero unleashed her formidable skills in battle, Sage detected a subtle shift in the elemental energies, a sign that their efforts were not in vain. In the ruined elven fortress, the flow of water had been restored, easing Sage's task of sealing the portal through which the demons had wrought their havoc upon the land. As Sword Saint valiantly defends Sage, she muses about the mysterious individual who liberated the ruined elven fortress and dismantled the demonic magic circle. Doubting the elves' capability to resolve the crisis so swiftly, she voices her skepticism. The truth gradually unfolds. Goblin Slayer's earlier discovery of tablets, handed over to Sword Maiden, contained crucial information about the demon's intrusion into the mortal realm. Acting swiftly, Sword Maiden summoned Hero to stall the demons while someone closed the magic circle within the ruined elven fortress. Hero perceives the unforeseen turn of events as fortuitous, persisting in her relentless assault on the demonic forces before her. Meanwhile, in the serene ambience of the elven village, the wedding ceremony of Forest Princess and Shining Helm proceeds without a hitch. As the festivities commence, Dwarf Shaman and Lizard Priest regale the intrigued elves with their captivating tales. Inquisitive, Goblin Slayer queries High Elf Archer about her future plans, inquiring if she intends to remain at home. High Elf Archer responds, expressing her desire to continue adventuring for a while longer. Despite having been away from home for nearly 5 years, she acknowledges that it's merely a fleeting span for her elven kin. Nonetheless, she assures Goblin Slayer that she has pledged to maintain correspondence with her concerned sister. Goblin Slayer expressed her genuine happiness for the marriage of High Elf Archer's elder sister, her voice carrying a subtle undertone of nostalgia as she remembered her own sister's sacrifices for her. High Elf Archer, perceptive as ever, reassured, her words laced with warmth and understanding, reminding of her growth and urging her to let go of any lingering self-doubt. With a gentle smile, she left to immerse herself in the jubilant atmosphere of the celebration. Approaching Priestess, High Elf Archer sensed her earlier unease and reached out with compassion, asking her to offer prayers to the Earth Mother for blessings upon her sister's union.
So, will you say a prayer?
You'd like a prayer?
As Priestess bowed her head in prayer, a soft breeze rustled through the trees, a gentle affirmation from the forest that their entreaties had been heard. Encouraged by this divine response, High Elf Archer beckoned Priestess, Cowgirl, and Guild Girl to join the circle of elven maidens, where her sister prepared to toss her flower crown into the joyful throng. Amidst laughter and anticipation, each maiden eagerly reached out, their eyes alight with the promise of future love. After the festivities wound down, High Elf Archer reminisced with a wistful smile about the 3 days and nights of ceaseless revelry that she and her companions had enjoyed before returning to the familiar bustle of Frontier Town. She casually remarked on the absence of her sister's anticipated letter, hinting at the continued merriment among the elves, even as they recounted the joyous occasion. In her youthful days, Sword Maiden bravely battled in the treacherous dungeon of the dead alongside her companion. Facing formidable greater demons, they skillfully demonstrated their prowess. Employing a protective barrier, she shielded her allies while the Mim and monk swiftly silenced the demons' spells. This allowed the samurai captain and the rest of the party to unleash devastating attacks before combining their powers in a fusion spell to obliterate their foes. Gratefully, Sword Maiden meticulously mapped their progress, relieved that they had not encountered any goblins. Transitioning to the present, we find Goblin Slayer engaged in combat with a formidable sea serpent, a creature unlike the goblins he typically hunts. Resistant to conventional arrows, the serpent attempted to capsize their boat, prompting Priestess to erect a protective barrier, while Lizard Priest expertly harpooned the creature, temporarily subduing it. The scene then shifts to recount how they arrived at this perilous moment. Initially informed of a fishery under siege by sea goblins, the group prepared for battle. However, upon encountering the so-called sea goblins, revealed to be gillmen, they learned that the true culprit behind the attacks was the sea serpent, manipulated by an unknown entity causing celestial disturbances. Initially reluctant to engage in a mission devoid of goblins, Goblin Slayer's companions persuaded him to aid in the quest to clear their reputation. Their decision proved wise as Lizard Priest discerned the creature's true nature as a fish and devised a cunning strategy. Blinding the fish with Priestess's magic, Lizard Priest successfully harpooned it once more, while Dwarf Shaman enchanted it with Water Walk, causing the creature to suffocate as it struggled out of water. With a final arrow from High Elf Archer, the creature met its demise. Reflecting on the encounter, Goblin Slayer mused on the simplicity of dispatching foes compared to his usual adversary, the goblins. Lizard Priest conveyed his dissatisfaction to Guild Girl while elucidating the circumstances. Afterwards, they divided the reward acquired from the Gillmen among themselves, each selecting an item to keep or utilize. Goblin Slayer obtained a seashell to present to Farm Girl, who cherished it dearly due to the rarity of sea-related items.
It's amazing! Thank you so much.
Subsequently, the scene shifted to Sword Maiden, who had approached Goblin Slayer regarding a goblin quest. She, along with her handmaiden, assistant, was organizing a journey to the capital. However, goblins had been sighted along the highway, posing a threat to their passage. Hence, she required his assistance to eliminate them. Though officially termed a bodyguarding mission, the quest entailed slaying the goblins. Described as numbering at least 20, with matching tattoos and riding wolves, Goblin Slayer deduced them to be wanderers, expressing confidence that their eradication would resolve the matter. Goblin Slayer assembled the group, securing half payment upfront and the remainder upon completion. Along the journey, he paused at the farm to bid Farm Girl farewell, inciting a tinge of envy in Sword Maiden, before resuming their travels. As night fell, they halted for rest, during which Sword Maiden attempted to engage in conversation with Goblin Slayer, only to be interrupted by Priestess awakening. As the party settled in, Goblin Slayer and Sword Maiden, with keen perception, discerned an approaching threat. Swiftly, Priestess donned her chain shirt and roused the others while Goblin Slayer ensured Sword Maiden's safety within the carriage. The ominous howls of wolves heralded the arrival of the goblin riders, plunging them into a deadly confrontation. The goblins bore a distinctive black hand tattoo on their backs, forcing the group to adapt their tactics, as their usual methods risked scattering rather than eliminating the goblin. Temporarily dispatching Lizard Priest, they formed an anvil formation, which inadvertently offended High Elf Archer due to prior derogatory remarks from Dwarf Shaman. Priestess utilized protection to fortify one flank, while lizard priest's dragon-toothed warriors approached from behind, and the others closed in from alternate angles. As dawn broke, the battlefield bore witness to a grim scene of carnage, strewn with the corpses of wolves and goblins. Inquiring about potential captives, Goblin Slayer learned from Sword Maiden of rumors indicating a group of 5 or 6 individuals taken captive. Examining the remains, he deduced that some had been consumed, suggesting the presence of survivors elsewhere, guarded by additional goblins. As they journeyed towards the capital, Priestess marveled at the sights around her, while Goblin Slayer held a piece of goblin skin bearing a hand-shaped tattoo.
So gross.
Why'd you rip off their skin again?
The line to enter the capital stretched long due to the king's absence, as he personally collected taxes in troubled regions. This fact surprised the group, especially considering Goblin Slayer hailed from a humble farming village. Upon reaching the entrance, they were required to provide identification. A guard, noting Goblin Slayer's rugged appearance despite carrying a silver tag, gave him some attitude, prompting a frown from Priestess. However, Sword Maiden intervened, vouching for Goblin Slayer's authenticity, which swiftly changed the guard's demeanor. Curious about Goblin Slayer's familiarity with the capital, Priestess inquired if it was his first visit. He confirmed it was and expressed a wish to have brought his sister there. Reflecting on his past, Priestess remarked that he might have a chance to fulfill that wish someday. In her room, the princess, a young girl identical to Priestess, openly complains to her maid about her elder brother, the king, for not allowing her to leave the castle. Despite the maid's reminders about the dangers outside, the princess points out that the king used to be an adventurer, making his refusal hypocritical. She also mentions a flaming star that recently fell, expressing her desire to investigate. However, she's reminded not to bring up the topic, which further annoys her. As her brother returns to the castle, Princess takes note of her maid's cousin, a merchant who leaves the capital daily and plans to sneak out at night. After dropping off Sword Maiden at her temple, Goblin Slayer and his party head to a tavern before he goes to the temple library for research. At the tavern, Dwarf Shaman and Lizard Priest sense that something is bothering Goblin Slayer. He reveals that his recent seaside adventure and the current escort mission have kept him from slaying goblins. Despite this, Goblin Slayer admits that he's having fun, but he feels that it isn't right for him, shocking his companion. They both convey to him that his usual constant slaying of goblins was indeed a righteous deed, but he needs to experience life as well to better hone his ability. Hearing this, Goblin Slayer is reminded of the intense training from his mentor, Burglar, who not only trained him rigorously but also provided valuable life advice like this. Elsewhere, Priestess and High Elf Archer visit a graveyard to pay their respects to Wizard, with Priestess mentioning that she has met Wizard's little brother, Wizard Boy. Sensing that Priestess needs some uplifting, High Elf Archer takes her to a large public bath spa to unwind. As they joyfully have fun, Priestess is approached by an incognito princess, who inquires about her class, rank, and equipment. Priestess politely answers, believing the princess is another rookie adventurer, and offers her advice. However, as Priestess and High Elf Archer prepare to leave, Priestess realizes her equipment has been stolen.
We can't find her clothing anywhere.
To her surprise, she finds her purse elsewhere, filled with precious gems left as compensation for the theft. Discovering that her chainmail, the first thing Goblin Slayer praised her for getting, is gone as well, Priestess breaks down, and High Elf Archer vows to help her retrieve it. That night, as the party reassembles and consoles Priestess for the theft of her equipment, Sword Maiden gives Goblin Slayer the book he was looking for. In a rather seductive manner, Sword Maiden tries to advise Goblin Slayer on how he should offer words of encouragement to Priestess in her time of vulnerability. Goblin Slayer, however, counters with the tale of his father's hunting knife and how it was meant to be passed down to him but was stolen, and he never found it, advising that things get lost. Seeing his inability to solve the problem, Sword Maiden promises to bring the matter up to the proper authorities tomorrow. Meanwhile, Goblin Slayer combs through the book for the symbol he found on the goblins the day before. The next day, the royal court discusses recent matters in the realm. Court Mage, gold-ranked Padfoot, and royal guardsmen deliberate on a flaming star that has fallen on a holy mountain, debating whether it's an ill omen that might require the intervention of Hero and her party. Red-haired Cardinal corrects misconceptions about the God of Wisdom, emphasizing its destructive nature for those it blesses. Sword Maiden raises the issue of Priestess' stolen equipment, expressing her desire for a more serious approach to the goblin problem, and the king agrees to investigate the stolen goods. Female Merchant provides an update on the progress of the training centers for young adventurers, proposing the addition of meals and lodging for rookies. While the king supports the idea, budget concerns arise. She suggests having the training centers take charge of sewer patrols from the guild. An elderly minister proposes extending this regulation to goblin slaying quests. The ladies give him a stern look, prompting him to retract the suggestion. The king agrees to have the training centers handle sewer patrols for now, with silver-haired maid's approval. Suddenly, the princess's maid bursts into the room, revealing that the princess, who had earlier borrowed priestess equipment, has been captured by the cult of goblins that Goblin Slayer encountered before. Despite the horror and concern, the king explains that he cannot simply send the army to rescue her after repeatedly refusing to address the goblin threats earlier, which would make him a hypocrite. Realizing the need for a trustworthy adventurer, the royal court attempts to deduce the location of the goblin's nest, only to discover that it is in the Dungeon of the Dead. Knowing that not just any adventurer could survive the dungeon, the royal court requests Sword Maiden to handle the situation, as she conquered it with her party in her youth.
Will you do this for us?
Sensing her PTSD and fears, female merchant summons Goblin Slayer, who volunteers to slay the goblin. As the heroines' group arrived at the royal court, they were greeted by the majestic sight of the king's grand chambers, adorned with tapestries depicting ancient battles and noble quests. The air was heavy with anticipation as they were directed towards the king, who awaited them with a grave expression. Their footsteps echoed against the polished marble floors as they approached the throne, the weight of their mission pressing upon them. The king, seated upon his ornate throne, gestured for them to take their place before him. His eyes held a mix of concern and hope as he spoke of the meteor that had crashed upon the holy mountain, a symbol of impending doom that threatened the kingdom's peace. The heroine, standing tall amidst her companions, hesitated at the king's offer of a reward for their services. Her sense of duty warred with her reluctance to accept payment for what she saw as her obligation. However, her allies, with gentle insistence, urged her to consider the practicality of taking what was offered, reminding her of the resources needed for their quest ahead. Amidst the discussion, the king's gaze flickered with a glimmer of desperation as he expressed his fervent hope that Goblin Slayer's party could succeed where others had failed and rescue his beloved sister. The gravity of the situation hung heavy in the air, driving home the urgency of their mission. During the briefing that followed, the female merchant provided crucial details and resources, ensuring that the group was well prepared for their journey. With a practiced hand, she arranged for horses to be procured, their sturdy frames promising swiftness in the face of danger. The dwarf shaman's spell, whispered in ancient tongues, added a layer of magical protection to their steeds, further enhancing their chances of success. The lizard priest's eyes gleamed with excitement at the prospect of exploring the renowned dungeon, his thoughts already filled with visions of vanquishing the green devils that lurked within. Yet, the high elf archer, ever perceptive, couldn't resist a pointed reminder of his past transgressions, her words carrying a weight of reproach. Amidst the camaraderie and tension, Priestess, with quiet determination, voiced her concerns, acknowledging the past but refusing to let it overshadow their shared goal. Her resolve was unwavering, a beacon of hope amidst the uncertainty that lay ahead. After expressing her gratitude for their willingness to undertake the perilous quest in her stead, Sword Maiden carefully handed them a weathered map. Its creases whispered of past journeys through the labyrinthine passages of the Dungeon of the Dead. Meanwhile, Goblin Slayer passed her a tattered notebook filled with his meticulous research notes, each mark and symbol meticulously recorded. The map, a fragile guide to the underworld, traced a route to the 4th floor, where the beating heart of the dungeon supposedly lay. However, etched in the margins was a dire warning: venture further, and survival would hinge on a delicate amulet fashioned from a simple blue ribbon. As they departed, female merchant and Sword Maiden found solace in each other's company. In hushed tones, they mused about the possibility of future adventures, each sharing their apprehensions and fears. Sword Maiden, once a paragon of courage, confessed the erosion of her resolve in the face of overwhelming dread. Meanwhile, female merchant, typically undaunted, admitted to grappling with her own inner demons, longing for the day when goblins would vanish from their world. In the aftermath of the chaos, Priestess stumbled upon her staff amidst the debris of an overturned cart. The sight served as a grim reminder of her recent ordeal, suggesting she had been snatched away as a pawn in some dark ritual. Despite the disorder, Goblin Slayer's analytical mind remained sharp. He scrutinized the scene, criticizing the apparent recklessness of their adversary's plan. Yet, with time against them, they knew they had little choice but to press forward. Their journey led them to the imposing entrance of the Dungeon of the Dead, a foreboding fortress city carved into the very heart of the mountain. With careful steps, they plotted their course, mindful of the dwindling resources that tethered them to this treacherous realm. Inside the Dungeon of the Dead, the party found themselves immediately confronted by the Goblin Riders, and they began dispatching them swiftly. However, the High Elf Archer grew anxious about depleting her arrows due to the overwhelming numbers of the goblins. Therefore, they decided to retreat after Goblin Slayer ignited a significant portion of them with gasoline before employing another gate scroll. He observed that this time the gate was linked to a high point in the sky, rather than the depths of the ocean, indicating an impending goblin downpour elsewhere. Upon arriving in a section of the dungeon where fires couldn't be lit and their dark vision was impaired, they recognized the need to take a break. Priestess expressed regret for her perceived lack of assistance, but the group reassured her of her importance in due time. They then resumed their journey until discovering an elevator.
That's the elevator from the map.
Meanwhile, shifting focus to the heroine's party, they found themselves confronted by an eldritch abomination resembling the amalgamation of goblins that had passed through the gate scroll. Despite the mage's suggestion of a drastic magical solution, the heroine opted against it, fearing repercussions if the mountain were to shrink. However, they realized that the creature had inherited the weaknesses of the goblins it had absorbed, making it vulnerable, and the heroine swiftly dispatched it with a single strike. Meanwhile, in Goblin Slayer's group, it was noted by him that there was a spellcaster amidst the goblins needing to be addressed. Concern arose about the risk of being overwhelmed if they descended to the bottom of the elevator and were swarmed. High Elf Archer, using her keen hearing, assessed their numbers and detected a peculiar odor. Lizard Priest speculated that the goblins might be conducting a ritual, implying that the odor could be hazardous. Thus, Priestess applied Purify to shield them from potential poisoning, while Dwarf Shaman illuminated their surroundings with dancing lights for better visibility. Once their roles were designated, they proceeded cautiously to the ritual site. There, they encountered the princess positioned at the center of an altar, guarded by a goblin priest who enveloped them in a protective spell. While they focused on eliminating the lesser foes, Priestess sensed an ominous presence and realized that the spilled blood was feeding into it. Hastily, she cast Purify once more to cleanse the area, disrupting the protective spell. In a desperate move, the goblin priest attempted to use the princess as a hostage. However, he was swiftly incapacitated by a well-aimed blow from Goblin Slayer, followed by a decisive strike to his skull. In the Dungeon of the Dead, Priestess uses her holy light to blind the goblins as she identifies the leader as a goblin priest. The goblin priest casts a barrier, ordering his warriors to die against the party, who effortlessly slaughter them. Priestess then realizes the priest is attempting to use the princess as a sacrifice, wanting the wholesale slaughter of his minions to pool more and more blood in a magic circle. Reacting immediately, Priestess casts Purify, turning all the blood into water and ruining the goblin priest's plans. As all his minions die, he attempts to use Princess as a shield, but he is easily dispatched by Goblin Slayer, who simply kicks him in the crotch. The menacing hand unleashes havoc upon the party, casting a powerful ice spell that Lizard Priest bravely absorbs, albeit leaving him immobilized. Dwarf Shaman steps in, creating an ice wall to mitigate the onslaught, but an unexpected assault from the hand inflicts a serious wound on High Elf Archer. Rallying together, the party devises a plan. Goblin Slayer takes charge, successfully diverting the hand's attention, allowing Priestess to open the elevator doors. As the hand lunges towards them, Priestess employs her barrier miracle, effectively immobilizing the formidable foe. In a tremendous struggle, the party manages to force the hand into the open elevator, with a tense moment of anticipation. The elevator descends, crushing the hand and putting an end to the relentless threat. Emerging from the depths of the Dungeon of the Dead, the exhausted and injured party finds themselves confronted by the relentless goblin horde. With limited options and facing the impending threat, they are saved at the 11th hour by the timely arrival of Sword Maiden, leading a small army of warrior priests and paladins from various temples of the gods. Sword Maiden intervenes just in time. Goblin Slayer discloses that he had previously sent Sword Maiden a note, elucidating that their adversaries were not ordinary goblins, but malevolent non-prayer characters who worship demons. He acknowledges that the decision to provide assistance was ultimately hers. Despite Sword Maiden's evident apprehension towards the goblins, she maintains a strong front, her alligator familiar serving as her protector. With determination, Sword Maiden proceeds to decimate the goblin horde, showcasing her formidable skills in the face of adversity. In the capital, a corrupt noble unveils his nefarious alliance with a dark wizard aligned with chaos. In a boastful monologue, they detail their supposedly perfect plan to exploit goblins for the kidnapping of the princess, aiming to sacrifice her to resurrect a dark god. Their intricate scheme involves merging the dark god with an alien creature, enabling it to assume the princess's form and manipulate her brother, the king, under its control. The corrupt noble openly expresses contempt for the king, dismissing him as a mere adventurer who stumbled into royalty through luck. As part of their backup plan, the noble discloses intentions to spread false claims, fabricating a narrative of the princess being violated by goblins or tainted by chaos, before they can fully revel in their sinister plot. The Knight of Diamonds dramatically crashes their meeting, revealing his true identity. Realizing the jig is up, the forces of chaos attempt a counterattack, only to find themselves dismantled by the combined might of the Knight of Diamonds and the silver-haired thief. The tables turn swiftly as justice prevails over the malevolent forces. Upon returning to the western frontier, Guild Girl is taken aback when she learns that Goblin Slayer declined the reward for saving the noble woman captured by goblins, with the actual events of the princess's kidnapping being covered up. Instead, he opted for the standard bounty for goblin slaying. Both Priestess and High Elf Archer agree that this aligns more with Goblin Slayer's straightforward and practical approach rather than seeking grandiose rewards. As Guild Girl continues to share information, she reveals that a heretic fortress was destroyed in the capital. Priestess reflects on the challenges of growing and maturing, expressing her own struggles. However, after Guild Girl provides some words of encouragement, she drops another piece of news. The princess has recently become a devout follower of the Earth Mother. Initially saddened by this revelation and silently fearing the worst about the princess's experience with the goblins, Priestess is relieved to learn that the princess joined the temple as a full cleric. The motivation behind her choice was meeting a cleric of the Earth Mother and aspiring to be like her. This revelation fills Priestess with a renewed sense of confidence and purpose, realizing that not only did she save the princess's life, chastity, and virtue, but she also inspired her to pursue a path of greater significance. Returning to his home, Goblin Slayer walks up his pathway, reflecting on the admirable resilience of Priestess, female merchant, and Sword Maiden who have overcome their trauma and pressed forward. He contemplates the recent adventures that have shaped his journey, assisting Wizard Boy and Refire, forging stronger connections with his peers Spearman and Heavy Warrior, attending the wedding of Forest Princess, and ultimately rescuing a princess. As he approaches his home, Cowgirl comes to greet him. In this moment of reflection, Goblin Slayer reaffirms his identity and purpose, emphasizing who he is and what he does.
I go on adventures, and I slay goblins.
The day concludes with a sense of fulfillment and purpose for Goblin Slayer as he embraces the path he has chosen.